Well, tubers, I got bad news. My Massey Harris pony, the engine has to come out. Yeah. Well, it's gonna be a pain to get this out, because I have to remove all this, such as maybe the radiator, the hydraulics tank, the manifolds. Well, I'm not sure if the manifolds, but anyway. I have to take a lot of stuff off to get this thing out, and that's what I'm gonna do. I already drained the oil out of this engine. As you can see, there's 5 gallons of oil. Well, not 5 gallons, but there's a couple gallons of oil in there. Well, let's start pulling this engine out. Let's start with the radiator and alternator. Well, after about 5 minutes of draining the antifreeze, taking the radiator off, I now got the front taken off, exposing the front of the engine. The next thing I want to do is take all the wiring off this engine and take the coil off. Maybe take the distributor cap off, but I don't know. After that, hydraulics. So right now, let's start on the electronics in the alternator. Let's do it. Overall, everything is all taken off the engine. The engine is completely independent from everything else on the tractor. Things taken off, alternator, belt, all the wires, throttle linkage, choke linkage. I even took the carburetor off. Well, carburetor I have to look into, but so far this engine is completely independent from everything else. Now let's just start focusing on the front. Take the hydraulic pump off. Well, I'm not sure if I'm going to or not. I think I might just drain the fluid. I'm not sure. I need to take off some of this top stuff on the engine. Other than that, this engine's independent. Now time for hydraulics. Well, we gotta take the line off and then start taking off the mounting bolts. Okay, back in a minute. Okay, after about 15 minutes, I got most of the big stuff off this engine, except for the exhaust pipe. Everything else is off. Guess I can, and I already pulled the mounting bolts out. So, all I'll need is a crowbar and another person, and we can pull this engine off. And I need to clear a spot in my garage for this engine, and that's going to be real simple. Okay, I'm going to do it. Well, after 30 minutes of heaving and nearly breaking my back, I got the engine out. I also had my brother help me with getting the engine out. But anyway, we got it out. I already pulled the bottom of the engine out such as taking the oil pan off and pulling the bearings out. Well, the caps. Well, since this is a Continental engine, like here's the front, back. This is your thrust bearing, 4 connecting rods, 1, 2, 3, and 4, and the rear main. I took out the front main bearing, and it does not look too good. Look at that. That is brown. There's brown right there. You can't have that. So that's why this engine was knocking really loud. And the connecting rod bearings don't look too good either. And the rear main bearing doesn't look too good either. It has some large scores. And copper is shown. So that's not good. So now I need bearings. I also need this crankshaft polished because there's scores in nearly every journal. And when I say lots, I mean lots. There's a lot of scoring on these journals. They are terrible. This is probably the worst bearing damage I have ever seen on an engine. Phew, I am surprised that I even had this engine running. Anyway, now that this engine's apart and I already know the problem, now let's see if we can get it fixed. Well, That's going to be a little difficult. Anyway, that's probably all I'm going to do for now on this engine. I have other plans for that tractor. Anyway, right now you're looking at a Craftsman 10 horsepower 1 single cylinder engine mounted on a rig that I built, and it can fit on my tractor. It's really cool though. All I need to take off is the flywheel off the other engine, bolt it there, mount this into the engine, hook up the mount this into the tractor, and wire it up. That's actually pretty simple. And right here, this is where the original hydraulic pump goes. That was off the front of the original engine. That's where the pump is mounted. Driven by this belt off this pulley. Well, also off this idler pulley. Just a moment. And it went like that. And this time, since this thing has to go into the tractor, because that engine's gonna be a while until it's fixed, I'm gonna do a lot of modifying to this when it's in the tractor, such as hooking up the choke, because I was never able to do that, hook up a better throttle, and put more control into this engine. And when this is done, it's gonna be really cool. It's gonna be really cool when it's done. So that's pretty much what I want to do.